we leave these doctor's offices wondering, like, wait a second, so how exactly do I do that? Do I have to, sit and meditate and wake up at 6 in the morning and get 10 hours of sleep at night? And my kids and my partner need to never complain. And I have to have everything perfectly under control.
Hey beautiful, welcome to Naturally Empowered Living, your safe space to guiding you on your unapologetic self-awakening journey. This is your weekly sanctuary for waking up from autopilot and transforming the way you approach life through the power of meditation, energetics, and root cause therapy. It is my mission to help you heal unprocessed emotions and release stuck energies by alchemizing your struggle cycles into opportunities for deep self-love, awareness, trust, and connection, to return to your innate essence of being, stepping back into your energy of alignment. Because here, we honor all parts of ourselves, the messy and the magic, the shadows and the light, embodying all parts that make you, you. So if you are ready to get to the root of cultivating real change, get cozy, grab your journal and maybe favorite crystals, and let's discover our power within together. Hello, hello, beautiful listeners. Welcome back to another episode of the Naturally Empowered Living podcast. Today's episode features a wonderful guest, Dr. Priyanka Venugopal. She is a board-certified ObGyn physician who transitioned into becoming a stress and weight loss coach specifically for professional working moms. After struggling with her own weight despite having all the information as a doctor herself, she realized that managing stress and adopting a lifestyle that supported her was the key to lasting change. She is the founder of Burn Stress, Lose Weight, the host of the Burn Stress, Lose Weight podcast, and also has an intimate coaching program, the Unstoppable Mom Group, designed to help working moms experience their transformation from the inside out. So I am super stoked for our conversation. I want to welcome you, pass over the mic to share a little bit about your personal story and elaborate on the journey that brought you to where you are today.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much, Jenna, for having me here. I love talking about what we're going to talk about today. And of course, I am grateful to everyone that is listening because I know that your time is very precious.
Mhm.
So if you're here listening to this episode and what we're talking about resonates, then I love that. It's really just lights me up talking about how to help women, especially women, feel better from the inside out.
Mhm.
And a lot of what I thought, in all of the years of education through college and then medical school and then residency and even early attending life, I thought that I had figured life out,
Mhm.
in a way. I'm a smart girl. I know we've gotten through. And yet I was living a life that really wasn't feeling so amazing. So, my story is probably like many, many listeners where you just work really hard when you're a young kid, where you're just told, go for the A+, get the gold stars. And when you have achieved fill in the blank, whatever it is for you, then you will feel your best. Then you will be set for life. Like we have these ideas in our mind that we're fed as children. And I think that me being a very, a little bit of a people pleaser, that girl that always wants to raise her hand and get the pat on the head, really, I mean, I took to that. I took it and I ran with it. That was very much my identity growing up. And then a few years ago, in about 2018, I had done it all. I had done all the things that I was told I should do. And I woke up as mid to late 30s. I had a 3.5-year-old son. My daughter was about 6 months old, and I was driving to the office. This is to my practice as an OBGYN. And I was pumping while driving. And I just remembered I had this moment. I don't even know, this moment fell out of the universe into my head where I was like, what is going on? What is happening? I have achieved all of the things. I literally have all the diplomas behind my head. And I have these two really sweet kids who are healthy. I have a partner who is supportive. I have a job, really, and patients that I cannot say that I have any faults with.
Mhm.
Yet I'm not feeling my best. And at this point, the scale had just tipped to a little over 200 pounds. And as a literal expert in women's health, as an OBGYN, I felt like, how is it that I haven't solved this problem? And that was kind of a little bit of a wake-up call, I think, because I felt like this is the best time of my life. I'm in my mid to late 30s. My kids are young. I want to model a certain way of being around them. I don't want to kind of go through the next 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades of my life feeling this way. So we need to start figuring this out. And I think the very first step for me was understanding just knowing information wasn't enough. Because if it was enough, girl had enough information in my,
Yeah.
I had all the information in my head, right? So if just knowing what to do, just knowing information was enough, then I wouldn't have any of these struggles.
Hmm.
That's really what led me to going into a deep dive into mindset and coaching and understanding stress and where some of my stresses insidiously were really sabotaging me feeling my best and going down a whole entire journey with that. And that was where I really invested in coaching myself. I
Hmm.
decided to get certified as a coach and I started doing this work deeply and it's now what I do. And I've lost a little over 60 pounds without the fads and the gimmicks and personally really feel, I mean, now I'm in my 40s and I feel my best than I have ever felt. And it's not, you don't have to run yourself into the ground.
Hmm.
So I love talking about it.
Oh my gosh, I resonate so deeply with your story. I used to work in oncology. I was a radiation therapist, and it was the same type of thing. Like, you go to school, you look amazing on paper, you actually are working the job, and your patients are your everything, like you are that advocate. And there was just something, it's like, I'm a robot, I'm going through the motions, I'm unhappy. Why am I unhappy? It was just so many, like the can of worms was opened, if you will. And I mean, it goes so much deeper than that, of course. I mean, with our struggles, and I didn't have kids at the time. So you're pumping on your way to work and you're like, it was just like that light bulb was,
What's happening? Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
I've been there, but yeah. So gosh, and
Yeah.
your kids, side note, but your kids are 3 years apart too.
They're 3 years apart now. They are 9 and 6.
Oh my
So this
gosh.
was quite a while ago, but yeah, 3 years apart it was in the throes of it, new baby. And now we're trying to figure life out. We thought we had to figure it out with one, and then you throw the second one into the mix. And now I'm like, wait a second, what's happening? We have to
I
figure everything out
know.
all over again.
I love
So
it. We have a 6 and a 3-year-old, and we're like,
mm,
my husband and I were just talking. We're like, we had Jace when Jalen was 3, and that's like he was getting easier at that time. Then you start all over. We're like, we made it.
I know.
But of
I
course, I mean,
know.
there's always going to be that new season. But it's just like,
Absolutely.
wow, like we're kind of there right now. But okay, reeling it back in. Just thank you so much for sharing that. There's so much
Yeah.
relatability there, and you talked about a little bit about this, and I know that we talked prior to recording, and just with identifying stress types. Like
Hmm.
everyone, deals with stress. Let it be, you are in tune with your cortisol levels, or you're just like, the world is a rat race, like however you want to perceive stress. So, how do you identify different stress types, and how do you kind of correlate that with reaching your goals?
Yeah, this is a great question. And this is like, I love talking about this.
Hmm.
So, the way that first of all, I want to kind of step back. When we think about stress, most of us, our knee-jerk reaction is stress is bad. And we've been fed this a lot, right? You go to your doctor and maybe you are talking about how you're feeling. You're talking about some of your medical ailments. Maybe you have high blood pressure or you're struggling with your weight. And one of the things that your doctor might tell you is stress management, lifestyle, right? Make lifestyle changes and stress management. And we leave these doctors' offices wondering, like, wait a second, so how exactly do I do that? Do I have to, sit and meditate and wake up at 6 in the morning and get 10 hours of sleep at night? And my kids and my partner need to never complain. And I have to have everything perfectly under control to never feel stressed because that's not real life. That's not realistic. So I think one of the first shifts I had to make was really first accepting the truth that stress actually is not a bad thing. It's very normal. It's actually, the way that I like to describe, because I love using analogies and little ways of describing stress, I think about stress and cortisol really as a superhero. It
Hmm.
is designed for our survival. It is designed in the most primitive ways to help us fight danger, to help us fight or flight or freeze, and in some cases, fawn in the face of danger for our survival.
Hmm.
So, if that was the first reframe, that what if I don't need to get rid of all of the parts of my life or over control all the parts of my life that I think are creating my stress? What if I first start with stress is really normal? It is here for my survival. It puts me into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And the way that I'm reacting to my stresses is actually where a lot of the maladaptive behaviors are coming up and getting in the way of my goals. So that was
Hmm.
the very first thing. The second thing that I think happens, especially for women, and I see this with professional women, working moms, overachievers that have that perfectionist type A tendency, we will start to over rely on stress, these stress types. So instead of fight and flight being just, maybe when you see a lion outside the cave, that's when your brain might want to tell you to run or to hide. We start to bring that way of thinking into our work life. So a spreadsheet starts to feel like a lion. Or if you get negative feedback from a boss or a colleague, it starts to feel like this huge, dangerous threat, like a bear is about to eat you. Or if your kid is struggling in school or has been not invited to the birthday parties or got rejected, or you have a fight with your partner, a lot of times when we're not aware of it, our most primitive brain acts like these are real, serious survival threats. And
Mhm.
so what ends up happening over years and years and years, and I would say for most of us, myself included, this started when we were 5 years old. We start to really lean on our fight, flight, freeze responses. And unbeknownst to us, it might get us through some tough times, but it also creates a big cost. And the
Mhm.
cost of it is number one, you're not feeling your best. You might find yourself ruminating and overthinking and constantly worrying about problems. You might be playing, this was me, I would be playing with my daughter, and yet I'm thinking about my email inbox, or I'm thinking about the patients that I have to see tomorrow, or I'm thinking about the list that I have to round on. So you're not present in your life. And the other issue with, I call this kind of unchecked stress. It's like letting the superhero overwork. We're like overworking our superhero is it plays a serious role in our physiology, in our body physiology. Our body holds on to fat. It really affects our metabolism and it drives up urges and cravings. So if you find yourself thinking like, I know what to do, but I'm just not doing it because you have these intense urges to snack and scroll, it's because we have these unmitigated, unmanaged elements of stress. So I wanted to start with that because I think it's so important to get the background
Mhm.
around stress and cortisol. It's not a villain. It's actually a superhero, but we're over relying on it.
Mhm.
So that takes me then to these four stress types: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. I think it's really fascinating because some of us might kind of be in more one of these buckets more than the other. Like you might be a
Yeah.
fighter or a
Mhm.
flighter. I am someone that, and if you're listening to this, you can kind of ask yourself, like maybe some areas of your life you fight more, and in some areas of your life you might flight more. So with my partner, with my husband, if we get into an argument or disagreement, I go into fight mode. I'm like, oh yeah, it's you. I go into blame and judgment and criticism, and I like my voice is raised and I get irritable. So I go into fight mode. When it is, when it used to be with my weight, I was struggling to lose the weight I wanted, and I felt really embarrassed about the number, and I felt like so much struggle. I would go into flight. So I would hide. I
Mhm.
would stop weighing myself. I do call this monkey emoji. I would cover my eyes and let me think about this next time and later and when life is easier. I would also freeze, right? So I can think about this in the workplace and of course with weight loss. I would procrastinate. So freeze is an example of like indecision. You're
Mhm.
like, what is the best plan? You find yourself researching all the plans, you're Googling things, you're downloading webinars, you're getting all the PDFs on what's the best strategy, and you find yourself spinning in indecision. So that's an example of freeze. And fawn is people pleasing.
Mhm.
So this is when you're saying yes to something that maybe deep down you want to be saying no to, or you feel uncomfortable say no because you're worried about what somebody else might think about you. So it's fascinating how these four kind of survival mechanisms have evolved to help us,
Mhm.
and yet we're over relying on them and now not feeling our best because of it.
Yeah, I feel like, I love that you shared the examples even personally with you, how you can be all of them. It's not like
Yeah.
it's just the one, I just have to be that fight because when I learned about fawn, because I feel like it was always like fight, flight, freeze, right? And then it's like,
Mhm.
oh wait, fawn, that, oh my gosh, like that's a whole like that was me. It was like the freeze
Mhm.
fawn. Yeah. So it's so thank you for like bringing that up in terms of because I talk a lot about like honoring all parts of ourselves, honoring the anxiety because it's a messenger, honoring the emotions
Mhm.
because they are messengers. When so often we want to shove under the rug, we want to,
Mhm.
keep moving forward, go on that hustle, continue on that rabbit wheel, or we feel an emotion and it's like, I can't deal with this right now. I got XYZ and my kids and da, 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 da. There's so much stuff going on. But when we just
Yeah,
take
we
the
tell
time,
ourselves we're too busy. I think that
yeah.
that's a huge lie. And especially if you're a woman, you're a professional woman, and you have additional responsibilities if you happen to have kids, I call this a 3C story. It's very convincing, compelling, and very convenient to tell ourselves we don't have enough time for ourselves. It's
Yeah.
so convenient. And also, it keeps us on the hook to
Mhm.
overwork. It keeps us on the hook to keep our status quo. And then we wonder after this is me, I woke up and I'm like, wait a second, my whole life is passing me by. What's
Yeah.
happening? If I don't
Yeah.
make time for this, it's gonna keep going this way. So we have to decide it's actually not a time thing. It's about readjusting our priorities around it.
Yeah, totally. And like that being stuck in the busy being busy wheel, that those cycles that we just keep attracting or just keep going through because it's like, well, this is what I know and I don't like it, but this is what I know and it's just easier to do it this way. And I always use cliche quotes on here. I'm always
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm the queen of the cliche quotes, but it's so true. Like choosing your
Yeah.
heart, like what heart
Yeah.
do you want to use for
Yeah.
sure? Changing gears a little bit though, because you mentioned also like with your weight, like you could have all the information. And you mentioned also like your weight is just a data point, you know.
Mhm.
So for many people, your weight, I mean, you mentioned too, like that's when like did you say flight? Like you'd just be like
Mhm.
at avoidance, like here we go, I'm not
Yeah.
even dealing with this. Like
Yeah.
your weight can carry so much of an emotional and mental, baggage, if you will, if you
Yeah.
agree with that. So how can you share some ways of how moms or just how people in general can begin to kind of shift their perspective on, the weight, the scale, the food, the health, being
Mhm.
just that data point?
Yeah, this is great. So, if anyone, whatever goal we have, whether it's a personal body goal or a professional goal or a relationship goal, we have to achieve that goal is going to require, especially if we have not gotten there yet, we haven't achieved it yet. It's going to require that we do a deep dive assessment on why we haven't gotten there yet.
Hmm.
And what I have found, and this is what I had to realize back in 2018, while I was having embarrassment and self-criticism and a lot of judgment around my quote unquote lacking results on the scale and my lacking results that I was feeling in my life while I was being hypercritical, which is, by the way, a fight response,
Hmm.
really shaming myself. And it's so subtle because I'm a glass half full kind of person,
Yeah.
but I was increasingly judgmental on the inside. So I was like glass half full and like, very positive in so many ways, but my inner monologue was really, really mean. Like, I can't believe that you haven't figured this out. I can't believe that you need help with this. Like, what's wrong with you? You should have figured this out by now. You're a smart person. I can't, a lot of that. And when we have shame, blame, judgment, or criticism, by definition, we cannot objectively assess our results.
Hmm.
So while I was staying in the pool of my own, insert the poop emoji in this, in the way that I was thinking about myself, I was not able to objectively assess my results. Why was I 200 pounds?
Hmm.
Why wasn't I feeling my best? What was going on? And while I stayed there, while I was not objectively analyzing why I had the results I had from a really curious, objective lens, there was no way possible for me to create a solution that matched the real problem.
Hmm.
So while I thought the problem was me and some like moral deficiency or my lack of discipline, like it's a really just something inherent to my special uniqueness, there's no way for me to solve for that. So,
Hmm.
what we end up doing when we are staying really stuck in a lot of self criticism and judgment and that fight response or flight response with our results is we start trying to solve the problem with the wrong solution. This is spaghetti on the wall. So, let me try a juice cleanse. Let me try the next new app. You will like TikTok and Instagram and all the things you read on social media with like perimenopause and hormones. Let me go check my labs. Maybe it's my lab. You start chasing, I call these rabbits down the deep, dark rabbit hole. And we
Hmm.
will waste hours of time, energy, bandwidth, and money chasing these solutions that are not addressing the real problem. The way that I like to talk about this on my podcast is it's like treating menstrual cramps with antifungal foot cream. You can have the Cadillac of antifungal foot creams, the best one, but you will rub your foot raw and not feel better because we never figured out the real problem.
Hmm.
So that's the very first thing, was really becoming aware of, oh, I am really judging myself. I'm so critical. I am so harsh with the fact that I haven't achieved these goals. Like having some compassion for myself and becoming aware of that. The next step was to learn. this was a brand new skill set for me, was how to objectively assess my results.
Hmm.
And this means taking on 100% responsibility while being 100% kind. This is hard because I was like, I didn't know how to do that. How do you take 100% responsibility without blame and judgment and
Yeah.
criticism? Like, this is a new skill. So learning how to do that, and this was where working with a coach for me was priceless because I didn't know how to do that. She would be like, "Oh, that's," she really had to walk me through this process.
Mhm.
Once I started to objectively assess, this is why I don't have the results I have. This is the reason that I knew what to do, but I was night snacking. My kids would go to bed. I'm like sitting down with my Cool Ranch Dorito, plopped down with the Netflix and just eating when I wasn't hungry. Why was I doing those things? Let's get to the bottom of that.
Yeah.
And then have a actual solution that would solve for that problem. And it always came down to the fact that I just wanted a break from my stress. I wanted a break from being a busy mom. I wanted a way to treat myself. And I just used food. I gave food a job it just wasn't meant to have.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that. It's such a deeper, I mean, I love that you said, like, let's get to the bottom of it. Let's get to the root. Like, why? Why? Because it's so much deeper, more meaningful, the emotional, it's not just this, so thank you so much for sharing that. I want to now like kind of bring it all together because we've talked about stress. We kind of just dabbled in a couple steps with like goals and things like that. And you mentioned time a little bit. So I want to like, can we bring this together?
Yeah.
Our listeners, or if you're a working mom or whomever, we all have stress. We all feel like we have limited time. So,
Yeah.
how are there specific ways that you personally help people with managing their stress, reaching goals when they feel their time is like, where do I begin?
Yeah. So there are so many tools and skills that I think are that every woman deserves to have in her hands to
Yeah.
really help navigate her life. But I think that there's a few pieces that might help you start feeling better right now. The
Mhm.
very first one is to really see that our circumstances are not creating our stress.
Mm.
So my kids, the call from the principal, the number of patients or office hours that I have, the fight that I got into with my husband, the words that somebody said is not the reason that I ever feel stressed.
Mhm.
It's my thoughts about those circumstances that's creating my stress. And a lot of that is really programmed. It's so normal for me to have that. And sometimes just that awareness of actually labeling, this is just me feeling stressed because of a thought I'm having, will actually decrease distress signals in your amygdala. They have done studies and research on this, MRI studies that show a decrease in distress in your brain simply by becoming aware that this is just me feeling stressed. There's
Mhm.
no lion outside the cave. It's so human of me. Having compassion actually, this is not, we could turn this into a whole other podcast
Yeah.
episode, but this is the impact of oxytocin. I call this the oxytocin effect. Having self-compassion is actually very healing. It lowers your cortisol levels. It actually will help to offset that self-criticism. So we don't need the self-criticism to go away or the stress to go away, but imagine meeting yourself the way you would meet your best friend.
Yeah.
How human of you to be stressed about that thing. How human of you to feel worried about that. How human of you that you are having that reaction. And just becoming aware that this is just a thought and a feeling is going to actually relax your nervous system. And I
Mhm.
think the second piece, which is touching on time, is to also notice that this doesn't take more time.
Yeah.
Being kind to yourself and meeting yourself in from that lens doesn't actually take more time. I've done the math on this. If we spend just 5 minutes an hour during your waking hours, and this is if you're sleeping 8 hours a night, which maybe I don't think that all of us are,
Mhm.
if you, for 5 minutes a day, you were self-critical or judging yourself or ruminating or overthinking, you're spending over 9 hours a week and over 400 hours a year experiencing that way of experiencing your
Yeah.
life. And that's just 5 minutes an hour. I would be willing to bet if you're listening to this, I know this is me, we're spending way more than that.
Yeah.
So it's never time. I think the biggest thing to remember is being kind to yourself, meeting yourself with that compassion, and then knowing that it's possible to take responsibility to dive into the real problem is so possible. And it will save you hundreds of hours of time while feeling better.
Yeah. And just to kind of piggyback on that, because to give more context to when you're in those states of not feeling like you have enough time, or you're just like running on this cycle of like that struggle cycle, you're typically probably feeling overwhelmed. you're feeling obviously chronically, possibly stressed. You aren't making that progress. So you're just like down on yourself. You were kind of talking about that, those inner conflicts, those inner conversations that you're having with yourself. And I just feel like you kind of just reiterated too of what I said earlier with like honoring,
Mhm.
showing
Mhm.
compassion, having that awareness. It's so, so key. And I love that you shared like those actual, like the scientific stats of like showing that, how it helps just having that compassion. It lowers, that cortisol, that stress within your body because it sounds so woo-woo, like it sounds so
I
woo, like
know.
showing compassion, giving myself grace. What? Like I'm struggling.
Yeah.
I got a million things to do. What do you mean
Yeah.
you want me to slow down and like connect with myself?
Yeah. I
Right?
think a big reason that people think that is because they confuse compassion with complacency. I used
Yeah.
to do this. I used to think,
Yes.
oh, if I'm
Mm.
compassionate with myself, if I'm being nice to myself, then I'm going to be complacent. And
Yeah.
that's not the same thing. What I'm talking about is it's possible to be compassionate with yourself and kind to yourself and keep your foot on the gas.
Yes.
And that is what makes the difference. So we want to really acknowledge, listen, we don't want you to be complacent. If you have a goal, it's going to require an effort. It's going to, it's going to require that we put in the work. So
Mhm.
that's keeping your foot on the gas. But imagine while you kept your foot on the gas, you are also really kind to yourself. I like to meet myself with humor. When I notice myself getting all kinds of crazy in my head, I'm like, that is so cute. Like, look at you doing that thing you do. And it's so, I love it because now I get to model that way of being with myself to my kids.
Yes.
My daughter, who's 6, she's watching me. So I can give her lip service of like, be nice to yourself and positive thinking and rah rah. But if I'm not actually doing the actions, like our actions speak louder than our words.
Yeah.
So this is why this matters to me. This is changing generational mindsets. It's changing, I think, how our children can navigate obstacles. So
Mhm.
what we're saying, kindness is not complacency. Being compassionate is actually going to help you lean in harder, keep your foot on the gas more because you're not going to be burned out.
Yes. Oh, and I love that you brought in the kids too, because that was my next thing of like setting that example for your children. Even if they're having an altercation with someone else, you could be angry, but you're not going to hit them. It's okay to feel the
Mhm.
feeling, but it's not okay to hit. Or, it's not okay.
Right.
Insert that thing here. And it's like that fine line, that balance that I'm working through with my oldest right now, just because of that. Like it's hard. It's a very hard concept to be compassionate yet still keep your foot on the gas. So thank you for
Mhm.
sharing that because being compassionate is not being complacent.
It's not.
I love that. So tell us where we can find you. Like I know that I mentioned you have your podcast, you have your coaching program. So where do you hang out? Are you on social media? Like what
Yeah.
services do you offer?
Yeah, so I am burn, stress, lose weight everywhere on the internet. I think one of my favorite places to hang out is definitely my podcast, the Burn, Stress, Lose Weight podcast. I get into a lot of strategy and a lot of skills. I share a lot of stories, like real life fails, and how having some of these skills and tools can help professional women navigate the entire experience of just being like a badass mom. Like,
Yeah.
just being women, it's like you really do require, I think everyone should be armed with some of these skills. And definitely on Instagram, I'm always in stories and posting, and I have some amazing resources. I've recently dropped a hormones training. So I'm bringing my background as an OBGYN and as a mindset coach to help women heal their hormone health so they feel better while losing weight. I get into hormone pathways and science, and I love doing that, like science informed strategy. So you're not following rabbits down the dark rabbit
Yeah.
holes of gimmicks and fads. I really want to bring science to women feeling better.
Yeah.
So anywhere on the internet, burn, stress, lose weight.
I love it. Gosh, and you bring such a relatable, like you're so easy to talk to, but then again, like I hope that, our listeners, I love the share the stories, because that
Yeah.
is so relatable. So just thank you for spending
Oh,
time with
it's been
us
great. I
today.
love it.
And
Thank you so much for having me.
yeah, yes, and everything that we discussed, I'll link everything in the show notes for how we can support you and where we can find you. And just thank you so much again for your time today.
Amazing. Bye, friends.
Bye. Until next week, as always, simply be you. You have everything inside of you to learn your energy of alignment and be unapologetic in who you are. We're sending our love and light.
Did you find this episode free or empowering? Please read my review. Tickle, 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 boop.
Thank you for spending this sacred time with me on Naturally Empowered Living. If this episode brought you closer to stepping into your energy of alignment, I'd love for you to leave a written review and share how this show has supported your journey. Your feedback truly lights me up. and helps others find the space of transformation. And sharing it with someone who might need it spreads the ripple of healing even further. Be sure to check the show notes for ways to connect with me and explore personalized healing sessions and mentorships to deepen your self-awakening journey. Thank you. I appreciate all you are and all you do.